Do, 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 pow, pow, pow. All right, live from the wasteland down here by the river. I was getting to thinking, I heard this ad randomly popped up and it was talking about visit India. And my instant reaction was just making poop sounds because, well, India, you do have a problem with that, right? But I was thinking of a solution that may work for a lot of developing countries, your second and third world countries. Where am I going with this? Freedom Phil, like, subscribe. Let's get into it. I always turn up the video speed. And why do I say that? Because, frankly, dude, when it comes to it, you should be watching videos always faster. So when I upload it, you should be watching at 1.75. Let's get into it. I look at the situation in some of these second and third world countries, and I think, would it be easier to deliver propane for an incinerating toilet than it is to have a sewer system installed? And the obvious answer is yes. Sewer systems are massively expensive. And, it's an over-the-top cost. In some cases, you could have like a public facility to some degree, but it's kind of like if you've ever dealt with RV tech. You have a black tank. I'd like to have an RV that has no black tank. It has a gray tank, and I could reuse the gray water, like basically the biocompostable soap is, water for the plants. But no black tank. No black tank at all. Like, how are you going to do that? Well, the usual version would be a composting toilet. But for some people, that's a bridge too far. And this is something I could see more installed in normal house situations. Like if you've ever lived in a place that's too close to a lake and you can't have a normal septic system, an incinerating toilet. Now, one might say the incinerating toilet, they're not exactly free. In fact, they're kind of expensive. And like $3,500 to, $5,000, that's USD. But part of that is, the reason they cost so much is because, well, they're kind of a niche thing at this point. And you look at, how much, action burn do you get for a 5-gallon propane tank? Well, about 75 to 100 burns, so flushes. Now, one might say, well, that sounds like a lot, to some degree. But think about it from this perspective. Look at how much it costs to make a septic, to make the plumbing, to make all of that. And when you're thinking about this from RV life, it's pretty expensive. But think about it from this perspective. If we wanted this technology to proliferate and, become something more normal, and in a second, third world situation, developing countries, I mean, they've only been developing since the dawn of mankind, would it be much faster, even if it was only temporary for a number of years, to have composting toilets or incinerating toilets, especially because composting toilets, there's some, much like garbage, there's some logistics to it, and then somebody has to deal with it. What's left over after an incineration toilet? After a number of burns, you have a little thing of ash. Whoop-de-doo. So you think about it from that perspective for a second, and you're like, yeah, this could work out in apartment buildings. It could work out all over the place. And the problem I see with some of these countries is the same problem you see in some small towns, like up north, where I've got the house. I spent $130 a month for water I never drink, and 1,000 gallons of water is literally $1.40. The rest of that bill, now, by the way, I don't use any water when I'm not there, but it's still $130 a month. What is most of the bill? It's the septic system that the town has. Little 1,000-person town, all the pipes, 100-year-old town, all the pipes are old, so they're replacing pipes. They're replacing, the filtration system, like, Lord knows the farmers spray ammonium nitrate on the crops, and then they try to claim it's not them. Oh, the nitrate levels are high. It's naturally occurring. Bullshit. But all the same, we, townsfolk, we had to pay for that system. So, I don't know, $1 million or however much that was spent on that system. So to get the water clean. Then, EPA comes in, it's one of those Obama improvements, and says, you, sir, you have to improve your city's septic. We had an area that was our drain field for years, worked fine. But no, so then we had to do that. And then with the pipes and all that, what used to be back 20 years ago was $40, $42 when I bought it, is now $130. Now, part of that's inflation. Now, imagine for a second if all I had was gray water, and I can't legally do this in the town. I've asked them, and they're like, no, you can't do that. You have to be connected to the city, or we'll put a lien on your house, or Translation, it's a racket. Imagine for a second we were using, biocompostable soap, so basically soap that is plant food. So there is no nasty chemicals. I'm using all clean, green stuff. And the problem with this is that people that are stupid won't do it. Like, I saw this Fabuloso at the fucking store. Thought that'd be good. I just dumped it down the drain because you're a fucking retard. You don't have things work. But yeah, you get a system that works, and all your gray water is basically plant food. So you use that to water some fruit trees or whatever. And then you don't have any black water. Now, if I can do that with an RV situation, why can't we do it in the second and the third world? And the second and the third world has the ability, like for every dollar or pound or whatever denomination, euro that you have in your country trying to subsidize a bunch of people in America or the European Union or the UK or whatever, how much further would that dollar go further in Africa or India making the infrastructure, for instance, incinerating toilets? You know, and then of course you're going to need some propane. But there's an industry to that. I would argue it's actually easier in the middle of nowhere to get at 5 gallons of propane when you go to town to get supplies than it is to build a fucking septic. And it's way cheaper. So I don't know. I could see that actually being something that's a solution, even if it's only temporary for 50 to 100 years. And if the price goes down because, well, if you build the infrastructure of the factories making these things in the second and third world, so the developing countries, as they like to be called, then the price would go down worldwide. Just saying, jobs for the people over there and a solution to a poop problem that is clearly an issue in second and third world countries. But, this is actual real environmental science right here. This is an actual solution, just like when I've talked about retirement by 30. Just common sense. And this is the type of stuff you're really not allowed to talk about. Get your mind thinking. Get your head out of the box. Freedom Phil, like, subscribe. Take it easy.